Welcome to our YouTube channel. Today, we bring you a story full of surprises and hidden angles that few people know about. Don't leave just yet. Just when you think you've figured it all out, there are fascinating and meaningful details waiting for you at the end of the video. Let's explore together and uncover the special message this video has for you. Are you ready? Let's get started. An extraordinary tale of history and rivalry. The Drachenfels collaboration delves into the epic events of 1792 when the French Revolution ignited a European conflict that would shape a generation. It was a fierce struggle for dominance over Europe and the world, waged both on land and at sea. Amid shifting alliances, the most enduring rivalry emerged between France and Britain. On land, Britain was no match for France's power, but at sea, the situation was reversed. Britain's Royal Navy reigned supreme, just as Napoleon would later dominate the battlefield. In an era filled with skilled British naval commanders, one man rose above the rest: Horatio Nelson. Bold, inspiring, and ingenious, Nelson became a national hero in Britain. His name is forever linked to some of the greatest naval battles in history. By 1797, the Revolutionary War had entered its fifth year. On land, the French Republic was a dominant force, having conquered the Low Countries in northern Italy and advancing on Austria. At sea, however, the British Navy maintained supremacy, having dealt a series of devastating defeats to the French. But a new alliance between France and Spain threatened British naval power. Ship for ship, the British Navy was unmatched, with experienced crews and exceptional leadership. In contrast, the French Navy had suffered the loss of many officers during the Revolution, and the Spanish lacked adequate resources and training. Britain also commanded the largest fleet, with 144 ships of the line, the era's most powerful vessels, built for major fleet engagements. France's fleet comprised just 69 ships of the line, but Spain's addition of 84 vessels tipped the scales. If these allies could unite their forces at sea, they would outnumber the British and potentially alter the course of the war. Britain's Channel Fleet, the largest naval force with 16 ships of the line, guarded the homeland and monitored France's Atlantic ports. The most formidable French squadrons, including the fleet at Brest, posed a constant threat. In the Mediterranean, the British fleet, consisting of 10 ships of the line, had operated from Corsica, Elba, and Naples. However, Spain's entry into the war left the British heavily outnumbered, prompting a strategic withdrawal to Portugal. There, the fleet was reinforced to 15 ships of the line under Admiral Sir John Jervis, tasked with monitoring Spanish movements closely. In February 1797, 5 Spanish merchant ships departed Malaga, destined for Cadiz, carrying a precious cargo of mercury critical to refining the silver and gold arriving from Spain's New World Empire. Recognizing the convoy's importance, the Spanish dispatched their entire battle fleet, 27 ships of the line and several frigates, as an escort. After securing the merchant ships in Cadiz, the Spanish fleet's next mission was to sail to Brest and unite with the French. Such a combined force represented Britain's greatest strategic nightmare. A strong Levant wind propelled the Spanish fleet swiftly through the Strait of Gibraltar, but the gusts pushed them far into the Atlantic. As they struggled back toward Cadiz, a thick fog blanketed the sea. At the same time, the British frigate HMS Minerva, returning from a diplomatic mission to Italy, sailed into the scene. On board was Commodore Horatio Nelson, a rising star of the Royal Navy, en route to rejoin Admiral Jervis's fleet off Cape St. Vincent. The Minerva narrowly escaped a dramatic chase off Gibraltar. Then, on the foggy night of February 11th, it found itself amid the Spanish fleet. The British sailors could hear Spanish voices through the mist, yet Minerva remained undetected and slipped away. 2 days later, Nelson rejoined Jervis's fleet, confirming earlier reports of a nearby enemy force. Although Jervis did not yet know their exact strength, he ordered his fleet to prepare for battle and set sail to intercept the Spanish. Admiral Sir John Jervis, the seasoned commander of the Mediterranean fleet, came from a prosperous middle-class family, but chose an unconventional path, running away to join the Navy at the age of 13. Now, at 62, He brings 40 years of naval experience, much of it spent battling the French and Spanish. Despite his wealth of experience, this would be his first time leading a major fleet into combat. Fortunately, Jervis had an exceptional team of captains under his command, including Collingwood, Trubridge, and the brilliant Horatio Nelson, each destined for their own legendary careers. Jervis's flagship, the HMS Victory, was an aging yet formidable 100-gun ship of the line, ready to face the challenge ahead. Opposing Jervis was Admiral José de Córdoba y Ramos, a Spanish aristocrat of 65 years. Like Jervis, Córdoba had gone to sea at 13 and served his nation with distinction, including several scientific voyages to the New World. However, his recent appointment as commander of the Spanish fleet owed more to seniority than merit. He commanded the mighty Santissima Trinidad, the most heavily armed warship in the world, boasting an incredible 130 guns. Córdoba led a fleet of 27 Spanish ships of the line, including 7 classified as first-rate ships carrying 100 or more guns. Yet, despite their impressive firepower, the Spanish fleet suffered from inexperienced crews and poor coordination. By contrast, Jervis's fleet consisted of only 15 ships of the line, with just 2 first-rate ships. On paper, the Spanish advantage was overwhelming, but naval warfare is not decided by numbers alone. The speed, discipline, and efficiency with which the British sailors operated their guns would prove decisive. Both fleets were accompanied by smaller frigates and support vessels, typically used for scouting and relaying messages rather than combat. At dawn, the British fleet sailed south in 2 well-ordered columns. Through the fog, they heard the echo of Spanish signal, guns confirming that the enemy was near. While the British moved with purpose, prepared to engage, the Spanish fleet had become scattered in their attempt to reach Cadiz. They were now split into 2 groups, a smaller force of 5 ships to the east, led by Admiral Moreno, and the main fleet to the west, commanded by Córdoba. Both groups were heading east-southeast, inadvertently positioning themselves for the British to pass between them. As the fog lifted, the Spanish fleet came into view. For the first time, Jervis realized he was vastly outnumbered. Lookouts in the mast tops called down reports. 8 Spanish ships, then 20, finally 27. Frustrated by the incessant updates, Jervis snapped, "Enough, sir. The die is cast, and if there are 50 sail, I will go through them." The Spanish fleet had also sighted the British and attempted to regroup. The larger force turned north, aiming to pass the British fleet in the opposite direction, while the smaller group moved northwest to close the gap. Recognizing the danger of being outflanked, Jervis ordered his fleet into a single line of battle, cutting decisively between the 2 Spanish formations. The maneuver was executed with precision, led by the HMS Culloden. In contrast, Córdoba struggled to organize his ships into a cohesive line, leaving them in a disorganized cluster that blocked each other's lines of fire. The battle began at 11:30 a.m. when the British vanguard opened fire. By 12:08, Jervis ordered his fleet to turn 180 degrees in succession to maintain contact with the main Spanish force. However, the smaller Spanish fleet was rapidly advancing, threatening to break the British line near its pivot point. A determined attack ensued, with HMS Colossus sustaining heavy damage and losing control. Its neighbors, HMS Orion and HMS Irresistible, provided covering fire, bombarding the Spanish attackers with devastating broadsides that ultimately forced them to retreat. Every moment now counted for the British. Córdoba was attempting to slip around Jervis's fleet to reunite with the rest of his forces. If successful, the combined Spanish fleet could overwhelm the British. To stop him, someone had to act boldly. That someone was Commodore Horatio Nelson, commanding the HMS Captain, a 74-gun ship near the rear of the British line. Nelson saw the critical moment unfolding. Convention dictated that the fleet maintain its line of battle for safety and efficiency. But Nelson, recognizing that the Spanish would soon escape, decided to act on his own initiative. At 1 p.m., defying Jervis's orders, he gave the command to wear ship and steer directly toward the heart of the Spanish fleet. Alone, HMS Captain charged into battle, facing half a dozen Spanish ships, including the colossal Santissima Trinidad. For 45 harrowing minutes, Nelson endured relentless fire as his ship closed the distance. The Spanish barrage, though inaccurate, shredded much of Captain's rigging and sails, threatening to leave her stranded. It seemed Nelson's daring gamble might fail, but reinforcements were on the way. As Admiral Jervis stood aboard the HMS Victory, he observed Nelson's bold move to break formation. Recognizing the potential in this daring maneuver, Jervis quickly signaled nearby ships to provide support. Captain Collingwood, commanding the HMS Excellent, was the first to respond, advancing swiftly to aid Nelson. Meanwhile, HMS Culloden was now within striking distance of the Spanish rear, where several ships had already suffered significant damage. Among them, Salvador del Mundo was effectively disabled, and San Isidro had been heavily battered. As HMS Excellent moved along the line, it delivered devastating broadsides at close range, compelling both Salvador del Mundo and San Isidro to lower their colors and surrender. Collingwood's aggressive advance forced San Nicolas into evasive action, resulting in a collision with the nearby San Jose. Spotting this chaotic entanglement, Nelson seized his chance. Though his own ship, HMS Captain, was crippled, it still had enough momentum to ram San Nicolas. Wasting no time, Nelson personally led the boarding party, climbing aboard San Nicolas through a shattered cabin window. In the fierce close-quarters fight that followed, muskets fired and pistols blazed. The crew of San Nicolas, having suffered over 200 casualties, nearly a third of their strength, finally surrendered. But Nelson was far from done. As musket fire rained down from San Jose, positioned alongside San Nicolas, he rallied his men for a second boarding assault. Using San Nicolas as a bridge, Nelson launched the attack on San Jose. Taken by surprise, the Spanish crew succumbed quickly to the relentless assault and surrendered. This extraordinary feat, capturing 2 ships in succession by boarding, earned the nickname Nelson's patent bridge for boarding first rates. Nelson's triumph was so complete that he was handed more swords by surrendering Spanish officers than he could carry, delegating them to his coxswain for safekeeping. Meanwhile, the Spanish flagship Santissima Trinidad, the largest warship in the world, was under a relentless bombardment from 3 British ships. With over 300 casualties among her crew, rumors began to spread that she had struck her colors. Yet, amidst the smoke and chaos, 2 undamaged Spanish ships arrived in time to tow her to safety. The British fleet, battered and unable to give chase, regrouped as Jervis ordered his ships to secure the 4 Spanish vessels already captured. By 4 p.m., the Spanish fleet, led by Admiral Cordoba, was retreating toward Cadiz. Against overwhelming odds, the British had achieved a remarkable victory. The Battle of Cape St. Vincent resulted in the capture of 4 Spanish ships of the line, including 2 first rates. Spanish casualties numbered around 800 dead or wounded, with 3,000 taken prisoner. British losses were relatively light, just 73 dead and 227 wounded. Nelson's audacious actions, though a direct breach of orders, were celebrated for their brilliance. He was knighted as a Knight Companion of the Order of the Bath. Admiral Jervis was elevated to the Earl of St. Vincent, receiving a generous pension and further honors. He would later become First Lord of the Admiralty in 1801, cementing his legacy as one of Britain's greatest admirals. Cordoba, by contrast, faced disgrace. Despite his personal courage during the battle, his ineffectual leadership and poor maneuvers were blamed for the Spanish defeat. He was dismissed from the Navy and barred from the Spanish court, dying in obscurity in 1815. While the battle was no decisive annihilation, its strategic consequences were profound. The demoralized Spanish fleet retreated to Cadiz, where it remained blockaded by the British, effectively neutralizing the threat of a combined French and Spanish naval force. This pivotal victory laid the groundwork for further British successes, and just a year later, in 1798, Rear Admiral Nelson returned to the Mediterranean in pursuit of the French fleet, carrying General Bonaparte's army to Egypt. In Nelson's era, a young Englishman looking to make a difference had a clear path: join the Royal Navy and fight the French. Today, the challenges are different, but the desire to contribute remains the same. Organizations like 80,000 Hours aim to help individuals find careers that are both fulfilling and impactful, tackling modern global problems like AI risks, pandemics, and climate change. Their free, research-backed resources provide guidance for identifying high-impact career paths, building a meaningful career plan, and taking action. For history enthusiasts, Royal Museums Greenwich offers a treasure trove of maritime artifacts, including items belonging to Nelson himself. From the Cutty Sark to the National Maritime Museum, these iconic attractions are a must-visit for anyone passionate about naval history. Finally, a special thanks to the patrons and researchers who make these explorations possible. Their dedication helps bring these remarkable stories to life, ensuring the legacy of figures like Nelson endures for generations to come. Thank you for taking the time to watch today's video. If you found this story interesting and meaningful, don't forget to hit like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any exciting content coming up. Leave a comment to share your thoughts. We're eager to hear from you. See you in the upcoming videos with more unique and meaningful stories. Stay with us.